Your palms are sweating. Your heart is pounding. You feel like you might be sick and you want to run. What's happening? Are you running for your life? Well, sort of. You're getting feedback.
Feedback can feel like that because the same area of the brain that compels us to run from danger also gets triggered when we receive unsolicited, surprising, or critical feedback. Fight or flight is our brain's response to a real or perceived threat. Feedback that feels threatening activates our survival defenses. When our brains are in fear mode, our capacity to process and learn from feedback is significantly diminished. Even low-intensity events or single incidents can diminish focus and cognitive abilities. We feel fight or flight first in our bodies. That heart-pumping, jaw-clenching feeling is an important trigger to understand and recognize. When we reach this point, we can either stay and fight, flee, or freeze. Once fight or flight is triggered, feedback is hard, if not impossible, to hear and process, because it attempts to balance two sometimes conflicting human needs: the desire to learn and grow, and the desire to be accepted, respected, and cared for who we are now. How you give feedback either helps your team optimize their learning opportunities or detours them into mediocrity, disengagement, or departure. No matter how well-intentioned the feedback, it's an epic fail when it's delivered carelessly and without preparation. There's a better way to give feedback. The brain's response to feedback is an important insight for how to engage a person in a way that results in learning and not resistance. The opposite of fight or flight is the rest and digest response. Feedback that triggers this part of the brain opens up the pathways to learning. Feedback is optimized when it stimulates a growth mindset rather than the fixed mindset that can result from a culture of fear. Research shows growth mindsets, the belief that a person can change and develop their abilities, are far more empowering than fixed mindsets, the belief that a person's abilities or talents are fixed, and that it's possible to shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Rest and digest mode also promotes a sense of psychological safety and trust, two conditions that help us process feedback and ensure it makes a positive, constructive impact. Let's look at two examples that illustrate the importance of psychological safety to optimize real-time feedback in the flow of work. Airline captains know it's beyond the skills of one person to fly and land a plane safely. So keeping flights safe requires real-time feedback from everyone in the crew. Flight crews debrief immediately after each flight when observations are fresh. Everyone is expected to speak up and share openly. Because feedback is a mutual learning opportunity, the captain invites the crew to speak first. If the captain speaks first, the crew might hold back if they fear disapproval from a senior officer. This team-based approach isn't meant to undermine the captain's leadership role. The manager's role, like the captain's role, is to guide the conditions that cultivate a growth mindset. Pilots and crew don't train to mitigate risk. They train to create the conditions for safety. That small shift in focus is what a growth mindset looks like in action. Here's another example that illustrates how team innovation is energized in an environment that welcomes cognitive diversity. When Navy SEAL teams are on a mission, there's a clear chain of command that creates clarity, safety, and efficiency for team unity. However, when SEALs return to base for feedback debriefs, they leave the brass at the door. Everyone is included and free to speak candidly. This leveling of the formal rank and file structure fuels individual and team development. One person on the team might notice a critical issue that no one else observes, which the team can improve on the next mission. A team growth mindset enables innovation to happen more naturally in the flow of work. Teams that feel safe speaking up and sharing feedback improve their efficiency, effectiveness, and performance. While not every idea is implemented, all ideas are welcome for team scrutiny. Let's look at some best practices for optimizing feedback conversations for growth, development, and learning. Building a feedback habit requires the self-awareness to ask for it and the consistent practice to prepare for it. As a manager, you want to activate rest and digest by mastering the habit of asking for feedback. Asking for feedback minimizes the threat response and promotes more psychological safety. Employees take their cues from managers. When leaders take the first step, they signal that asking for feedback is important. Model the best practices you want others to follow. Asking for feedback. Create a culture where people expect and ask for regular feedback conversations that help them grow and develop. Be future-focused and plan for feedback. Who are you asking for feedback this week, this month, or this quarter? Focus on 1 or 2 specific areas to improve. Ask for feedback regularly to make it safe for others to follow your lead. People will trust the process when you model the culture you want them to follow. Choose your ACE. Identify the type of feedback that will be most helpful. Is it appreciation, coaching, or evaluation? Reduce bias creep. Ask for feedback from a broad range of people. In particular, this helps reduce confirmation bias, which is the unconscious process of confirming our own beliefs and filtering out anything that goes against what we want to hear. The Learn More Resources Guide has more detail on different types of bias. Be accountable for follow-up. Set a date for when you want to receive feedback and follow up. Keep feedback fresh. Waiting too long to follow up dilutes short-term memory recall. And remember to thank people for investing time in your development. Finally, track progress. Take detailed notes along the way to visually document growth and map progress, and encourage employees to do the same. Documenting progress creates continuity and reduces recency bias. Receiving feedback. Receiving feedback effectively and successfully means actively working to understand it, rather than rejecting it or defending your performance. To develop a growth mindset, listen with the intent to gain an insight, however small. Giving feedback. Use care when giving feedback by framing it and saying it in a way that reduces the threat response. Unless feedback is urgent, prepare what you'll say to stimulate a growth mindset. We want to activate rest and digest intentionally before proceeding to a conversation. The Learn More Resources Guide includes many best practices and models for leading productive feedback conversations. Let's wrap up our message on feedback. The pace of business accelerates with each year, which means priorities change and requires employees to change direction too. Employees want feedback that will help them learn and grow, and they want managers to give feedback more frequently in the moments that matter each day. Feedback can be a gift that helps employees stay on track and course correct quickly. Leaders who prioritize feedback to continuously self-improve inspire an environment of greater trust and cooperation that others will want to follow. Feedback is a powerful learning and growth tool, but it must be requested, given, and received in ways that respect the people and the work involved. Managers who learn how to influence a growth mindset will meet the demands of the future by using the right approach to feedback today.
And just remember, when it comes to feedback, don't be a Bigfoot.